At Forest Sight palette. It was backwards. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be showing my top 10 fall eyeshadow palettes. Fall is upon us. Happy fall. I'm so excited because I love fall. It's my favorite time of year. I love the scent. I love the taste. I love everything about fall, the colder weather. Halloween's my favorite time of year. I'm just such a creative person. I can't wait to be so creative. As you're watching this though, I'm in the hottest place on earth, Miami. I have to take care of my mom for a surgery she's having, so I'm gonna be unfortunately missing the first couple weeks of fall in Virginia, so I'm very sad about that. But I thought I would sit down and talk to you about my top 10 fall eyeshadow palettes. These are palettes that I picked that basically represent fall in my opinion. Now, with that being said, I like colorful makeup, so none of these are truly neutral palettes. I mean, there's a couple of neutral, like pretty neutral for my standards. I love these videos because I love reminding you guys of palettes that are fall appropriate. So if you have them in your collection to pull them out during the fall, I don't necessarily mean go out and buy these palettes unless you're absolutely like wanting to. It's totally your choice. But the point of this video is to just kind of remember what you have in your collection and pull it out based on the season. I love doing that. I love seasonal appropriate makeup, but honestly, I mean, I do a bright eyeshadow look like any time of year. Like, I don't really care, but look at this look. It's very fall. I'm so excited to share with you my picks. I have some newer palettes and some older palettes and some newer to my collection palettes, even though they're older palettes. So we're just gonna talk about all the palettes, and I'm gonna be doing some swatches. I also created this look, and yeah, if you're new here, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. I do a ton of videos just like this, and colorful makeup is my specialty. And let's get into this video. Okay, so I'm actually not ranking these palettes. I'm just gonna go in alphabetical order based on brand name. The first palette I have is probably the most colorful out of all of them. The color story in here reminds me so much of fall. Even the packaging reminds me so much of fall. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Norvina Volume 3 palette. Look at this. It's orange, like fall. I love this palette look. It's even orange. Like, the packaging is orange. The color story in here really reminds me of fall. It's because it has some of those brown tones, those oranges, really like fall appropriate shades, but in like a brighter version. The greens also remind me a lot of fall. I don't know. I just think that this color story is so fun. I love the formula of these Norvina palettes. I think that they're absolutely great. This is a pro pigment palette, so you do have to be a little careful. It could be a little more difficult to work with if you're not as skilled. A lot of you might see this and think it's a summer palette because of the bright colors in here. I just love these tones for fall. They're like a more bright version of the muted, like grungy khaki tones that normally we see, like the ones on my eyes. The Norvina palette runs for $60. I think that they're a great price point because you get so many shades. The pans are very big. Definitely look out for it on sale because Anastasia Beverly Hills often puts these on sale. I actually got this one with 2 others and I got one of them for free. So basically it was buy 2 get 1 free. If you have this palette, pull it out in the fall and you won't be sorry. I just love it. And honestly, the formula of these is so good. I actually prefer these more than their normal like Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes. They are highly pigmented shadows, but they blend with such ease and you can create so many fun looks with this palette. So highly recommend it. I don't want to sound biased, but this next palette's probably my favorite out of the bunch. And I'm so like, oh, I have to. Okay, so this is the BPerfect Cosmetics Antidote palette. Now, this is a newer palette on the market, but I will tell you right now that if you are interested in this palette, let me show you it first in case you haven't seen it. This is like, of course, the most amazing fall color story. Obviously, they curated this exactly at the right time for the fall season. But I will say the Carnival 3 palette, the Tahiti palette, also somehow reminds me of fall, even though like it was marketed more of a summer palette. Honestly, the packaging even seems summer. But if you look at these side by side, they're very similar in terms of like the color story that they have. The only thing is that these are more grungy and deeper shades, more appropriate for fall. These are just like brighter versions of that. And if you own this palette, I urge you to pull it out in the fall. And if you're interested in getting this palette and the color story screams to you, I could tell you I have used it around 3 times so far, so it's not as used yet, but honestly I can see myself using this so much in the fall season. And I've used so many shades in this palette, almost every single one of them, and I have swatched every single one of them, and I know that they perform very well swatched. And the ones that I have used on the eyes, which is the majority of the palette, performs really well. I think the BPerfect formula is one of the most underrated underrated on the market. I think it's so good. These mattes are a lot more smooth and buttery to the touch than the ones on the Tahiti palette, which is really interesting how their formulations are like a little different now. I love both formulations, and it's probably one of my favorite on the market, which is saying a lot because I try a lot of eyeshadows, but this formula is so good. The shimmers in here are so pigmented and metallic. They call them shimmers, but honestly, I think that they are more like metallics because they're very bright. They're very bam in your face, and I love it. And I think it creates so many looks with this palette. I did do a whole review on this, by the way. This palette's divided into 3 sections. You have the green section, the cool tone neutrals, and then the purple section over here. So if you have trouble, I know that these palettes are big, the first 2 that I just showed. If you have trouble coming up with looks, it's divided for you in that way. So you have a little bit more of an easier time creating looks, but I'm honestly excited to dig into every single shade, like across the entire palette. Everything is like khaki and grungy in this palette, and I think it's perfect for fall, and the formula in here is amazing. This runs for $55 USD, but I think it's worth every single penny because you get so many shades in here. There's so many looks you can create with it. But again, if you don't have the Carnival Antidote palette, I urge you to pull this one out if you do own it, because I think it makes a really great fall palette. Even though it's just a brighter version of the Antidote palette, I do think that it's appropriate for fall, even though it's just a little, like, look at these shades over here. They're like khaki. Highly recommend these. I love the BPerfect formula. If you haven't tried it, I highly recommend them. Up next, I actually have 2 ColourPop palettes. I'm going to talk about them separately, but I will just let you know that they're both discontinued. But I'm going to be giving you the options that are still available on the ColourPop site, so you're not like hating me for a second, okay? The first is the At Forest site palette. It was backwards. This is the collaboration with Raw Beauty Christy. When I open this, obviously, like, it screams fall. Hello, like, this color story cannot be more fall, in all honesty. The perfect fall colors. I love the shades in here. I love the formula in this palette as well. The mattes are a little hard, like, as in to the touch. They're really pigmented, but they blend out with ease, and I love it. If you own this palette, pull it out for fall. But if you don't own this palette, you might own the Child palette. But I was looking on the ColourPop website, and I do think that the Child palette is still available, and it runs for, let me just make sure, $16. I believe that color story is very similar to this palette. The only thing that's different, I mean, obviously it's a 9 pan. This is a 12 pan. It has those grungy greens that are perfect for fall. The only thing that's really missing is like these red tone browns. There's a couple of neutrals in the Child palette. It's not as extensive. It's more of a green tone palette, but I think those greens are perfect for fall. So if you don't own this palette, I'm sorry. But if you do pull it out for fall, I'm totally going to be using this. I think I'm going to take this with me to Miami. I haven't even packed yet. And then, like I said, I have another ColourPop palette that's discontinued. This is the So Jaded palette. This is the collaboration with Kathleen Lights. Before I start talking about this, they did just come out with the It's a Mood palette, and I think a lot of people have also reviewed this and have said what I think. When I first saw this, I thought that's going to be what's replacing the So Jaded palette. It looks very similar in tone and color story. It's just as big, I'm pretty sure, and it's $34. I don't remember how much I paid for this. Unfortunately, you can't get it anymore, so I don't even know. You got a lot of jewel tones in here. Again, it's very colorful, but I'm talking more toward these like green khaki tones over here. This is the palette that I used on my eyes today. I think this is the perfect fall look. I think regardless, you can create any fall look, grungy khaki, or you can go into these jewel tones and still keep it pretty grungy and fall-like. So I do really love this palette, and I think the quality here is amazing. There are a couple of pressed glitters in here, this one and this one. I use this one on the lower lash line and I have no issues with it. It sticks really nicely. I love the loose glitter formula, but I know it's not for everybody. But just so you know, there's only 2 in here, and I believe the reviews I've seen of the new ColourPop palette, there's only 2 in that one as well. You don't have to worry about there being a bunch of pressed glitters in the palette. I know it's not for everybody. And there are no pressed glitters in the At Forest site palette. I love this palette. If you have it, I urge you to pull it out. If you don't and you feel like you're missing out, I definitely recommend to check out the It's a Mood palette. I almost bought it, but I'm like, it is almost identical in color story, so I wasn't really like, I don't need it. I love ColourPop and I love their formula. I think they're really good quality for the price. Their prices are very fair in my opinion. Next, I have the e.l.f. Hot Jalapeno eyeshadow palette. This is a tiny palette. This is a $3 palette. I highly recommend this one. This is fall, the fall color story of life. Like literally the cutest little fall eyeshadow palette. If you are wanting to experiment with like some green tones, some khaki green tones for this fall, I highly recommend picking this one up because it won't break the bank, but the formula is so good. There's 2 mattes and 2 shimmers, and I think every single shade in this palette is perfectly curated for a little fall palette, and it's like the perfect size. You could like take it anywhere. Like, look, what can I compare this to? Let's compare this to my lash tweezers. Like, it's smaller than my lash tweezers. Look at that. That's how small they are. Like, these palettes are tiny. The quality here is amazing. I think that the mattes are a little hard, but that makes them really pigmented, but they blend out very, very easily. I think that this is a perfect intro to fall. If you're like too scared to get into greens and you don't want to buy a huge palette that's gonna break the bank and have a bunch of shades you may not use, this is perfect for you. $3. I highly recommend it. Isn't it adorable? I have them all. I have every single bite-sized palette because I just think that they're so worth the money. The quality in these is almost better than else bigger palettes in my opinion. Next we have the Morphe 35F palette. This is my newest Morphe palette. They actually sent it to me like a month ago and I've been using it a lot since then. I don't love the Morphe formula. I think that Morphe palettes like this are perfect for beginners or people that are just new into makeup and don't really want to break the bank when buying a palette and just want like a bunch of options. I think that this color story is perfect for fall. There's like pumpkin colors over here. They're not too bright and orange. This is the perfect neutral palette for the neutral lover. You get a lot of options here for your money. It's a great bang for your buck. The formula isn't amazing, but it's not horrible either. It's totally workable. There's a black, which is amazing. You can deepen out any look, and the shimmers aren't so crazy intense. It's more for like everyday people. Like I said, I prefer a more crazy bam in your face metallic shade for the lids, but that's just me. I just seen that these fall like grungy tones over here. Like you can create a lot of looks with this palette. So next I have the Natasha Denona mini gold palette. I love this palette so much. I think I love it more than the gold, which I recently bought because she's discontinuing it. So if you find it and you want it and you don't want FOMO of other people having it because you won't be able to get it again, I recommend getting it. I did buy it at Look Fantastic and they still had a few. It's had a few left in stock and I think once it's gone, it's gone. Like it's not coming back. I'm not sure why she's getting rid of that palette because I don't think she marketed it as limited edition, but whatever. This is the mini gold and I love this palette so much. To me, this screams fall in a palette. I kept this one nearby so I could show you that I'm pretty sure this is a dupe for this. If you don't want to go for the $25 price point of a Natasha Denona palette, then go for the $3 elf. It's very, very similar. The only thing is obviously you get one more shade in this palette. Obviously the quality is better in the Natasha Denona palette because it's Natasha Denona. These mattes are so smooth and buttery and they blend like a dream. Looking at this, you're like, oh, you can really only create a few looks. Just like with this one, trust me, you can get really creative with just 4 or 5 shades. Like I can think of so many looks I would create with this palette right now that I have created with this palette right now. I just love the formula in here. The shimmers are all that intense metallic. You can create a nice grungy smoky eye, a really nice khaki greeny look. And I feel like you can create the look that I'm wearing right now, to be honest, with this palette, but I love it so much. Isn't it gorgeous? Oh my gosh, this is gonna be my go-to. I might take this one to Miami. I think I'll take this one to Miami. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. It wouldn't be a true palette recommendation video without a Pat McGrath palette. So my palette of choice for fall, hear me out. A lot of people may not agree with me. They might think other ones are better suited for fall, but I see this as such a fall palette. This is the Pat McGrath Mothership 6 Midnight Sun palette. First of all, the artwork, the packaging, the experience of owning a Pat McGrath Mothership palette. I own them all. This is the one I chose for fall and here's why. Let me pull it out for you. I love the grungy tones in here. I think that the mattes are very, very fall appropriate. You have the red tone matte, you have the very deep brown, and you have a cooler like crease shade. You have some really nice options for the lid. You have this green. It's perfect. The only shade in this palette that I would say feels a little out of place, but it's also like the center of attention, and it's probably what inspired the packaging as well, is the shade right here. But honestly, I still see it as a gorgeous fall shade. I love this purple Blitz Astral shade. It is gorgeous. It has a gorgeous duochrome and it's absolutely stunning. The green is just what gets me and what makes me feel like it's fall appropriate. It is a stunning like army forest green, I would say. Oh my gosh, it's perfect for fall. Perfect. These two together are gorgeous, aren't they? There's still just something special about the Blitz Astral formula. Like I can't even imagine. This is such a stunning formula. If you own this Mothership palette, pull it out for fall. I think it's a lot of fun. If you don't own it, it's not like I'm telling you to go buy it, but I do love the formula Pat McGrath. Pat McGrath makes my favorite eyeshadow formula, period, bar none, besides BPerfect Cosmetics. I love Pat McGrath. The $125 price point gets a lot of people, obviously. I would try to find them on sale. I think she's doing a sale, like an end of summer sale. As I'm filming this though, I'm not sure when this is going to be uploaded. It might be already done, but she does sales quite a few times a year. I will be honest with you, I've never bought a Mothership palette full price ever. I got this one, I believe, for $88 instead of $125. So I'm obsessed with this color story. I'm obsessed with the formula, of course, and I just think it's the most fall appropriate palette. Okay, and then the last palette, this is number 10. This is from Too Faced, of course. This is a Too Faced Cinnamon Swirl palette. This is a very neutral palette as well. I did do a whole whole dedicated review of this, and I will just spoil this for you right now. I really love the quality of this palette. I used every single shade in this palette in my review. I did 3 looks. Oh, it smells so good, by the way. It smells a little bit like spiced apple cinnamon with a hint of cinnamon. It's supposed to smell like cinnamon buns. I don't smell it as cinnamon buns because it would smell sweeter instead of spicier, in my opinion, but whatever. If you own any of these holiday Too Faced palettes that are in the metal container, I think that they're all fall appropriate. I think the quality is amazing. I love the color story. I think this is the most perfect everyday palette, but I do love the like brown tones in here that I think are perfect for fall. And then you have these over here that like help you get a little pop of color if you're feeling a little more on the wild side. So I do love it. I think the quality of the shimmers is amazing. There are some that are crumbly, but that makes some really intense metallics. There's a couple of shimmers that are just shimmer, not like the quality of the intense metallics. Intense metallic, just a shimmer. Intense metallic, I use that in the inner corner a lot. I did create 3 looks in my review video and I loved them all, and I've used this a lot since that video too. I think I said in that video that I was going to take this one to Miami. I think I will. I think this is the palette I'll take to Miami. I only want to take one because I'm not going to even really be wearing makeup all that much, but I think this is a great palette because it's going to give me a lot of everyday options with a couple of options for some pops of color if I'm feeling it. I really like these if you own the pumpkin spice, the any other one that they've come out with, because they all have a very similar color story. Honestly, I recommend pulling them out for the fall season because you will not go wrong with any of these color stories, and I've heard that the formula is really great. Okay, so that was it for my top 10 fall eyeshadow palettes. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what your top eyeshadow palette for fall is. I would love to know. And yeah, that completes this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps me out so much. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. For today's volume 2 palette. Oh, this is volume 3. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Norvina. This is the Anastasia that the color pop that I just stuck my nail in there. My nail's not even existent right now. And